right, mic check 1 2 3. Mic check 1 2 3. We're live. Welcome everyone to Monday's show, Space and Technology. This is the show we talk about space and technology. I'm one of your co-hosts. Today we have a few good things going on today. We have uh, topics we're going to cover tonight has to do with Mars, NASA, smart Band-Aid. Sounds interesting. We also have something from Tesla, Russia. We have a telescope, hydrogen power, asteroids to comet rays. Then we're going to come back down to Earth. We're going to talk about Israel, excuse me, and Benz, Mercedes Benz. What do they have to do with today's show? But that's some of the topics we have today for you. As always, to follow along with the show, if you're listening to the show or playback, the topics are down in the description so you can follow along. And if you want, or if you just want that article for yourself to read up on for yourself. This show is brought to you by Earth Dimension 2. Excuse me, I apologize. This show is brought to you by the Africans of Earth Dimension 2. 6 billion African citizens of the United 5 African Kingdoms. They are bringing you this show tonight. They contacted me last week. Let us know that Black people on this dimension is doing well. No, it's not as well as we could, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Going to let a few more minutes pass by before people can shuffle on in. Start the show a little bit late. Got something in my throat, people. And I don't know what it is. All right, let's get everything started. I see we got another co-host. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
All right, all right. Let's get everything started. I feel we're gonna have a few people coming on tonight, so let me share my screen. We can jump right into it. All right, this first article is from Engadget.com. This is by Morella. Excuse me, Morella Moon. Good last name. This is from July 8th. NASA's new climate science satellites switch on their lasers. NASA's new climate monitoring satellites, which SpaceX ferried to orbit in May, are almost ready to keep an eye on our planet's ice sheets, atmosphere, and ocean levels. On June 13th, the Twin Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment follow-on, or GRACE-FO, satellites switched on their lasers in search of one another for the first time. Those lasers will keep the satellites connected to each other while they orbit the Earth. tracking the changes in distance between them brought about by variations in our planet's gravitational field. The data, in turn, will help scientists better understand and monitor the thinning of the ice sheets, rising sea levels, and even the flow of magma underground. Wow. The satellite's predecessors, called GRACE, used the same technique, but they were only equipped with a microwave ranging instrument. While the Gracefuls have a microwave ranging system as well, they also flew with an experimental laser ranging interferometer, or LRI, instrument on board. This mission serves as the LRI's technology demonstration, meant to prove that it can deliver significantly more accurate measurements. NASA's JPL's Kirk McKenzie said, "The LRI is a breakthrough for precision distance measurements in space. It's the first inter-spacecraft laser interferometer and the culmination of about a decade of NASA and German-funded research and development. The fact that the satellite's laser has to be pointed towards a coin-sized hole on each other over a distance of 137 miles, while they orbit the Earth at 16,000 miles per hour, makes the technology even more impressive." It is. According to NASA, the June 13th test proved that the spacecraft's LRI instruments are working as expected. They were able to link up on the first attempt and were able to beam their first range data back to the ground team. Scientists will now spend the next few weeks to months fine-tuning and making sure they understand the data they beam back. All right. So NASA new climate science satellites switch on their lasers. So what about this stood out to you, Professor Mike?
Well, first thing that stood out to me is the fact that they were starting to use lasers um, rather than using those old microwave technologies that they were using in the past. This is the breakthrough in terms of how they go about checking for climate change and weather differences. The way how I see it is that this is going to be beneficial going forward, rather than using this old technology that is somewhat unpredictable. Because sometimes when the weatherman says, whether your local TV station or some other the National Weather Service, they'll say, "Oh, tomorrow is going to be sunny," or something like that. And that's, you go outside, you get rained on. And like, how did you get that wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going to get hit with this many inches of snow, so make sure you prepare. Or we're going to have to close school. And this, you get like a dusting of snow, and schools closed and services are shut down, all because these are, poor predictions.
So these things. Okay, we got some more people. Oh man, see. Hello, let's say Quiet Beat. This is first time on in a while. And how you doing, Anti-Gravity?
It was going
What's going
on? Now, the little about I know is about the you mentioned the weather that they use Doppler radar, right? Currently for the weather patterns.
Correct.
And with that, obviously, everybody had this experience. They go outside, like I said, they get rained on. But with this, it's more precision, and it's a higher level of accuracy with this, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that they're using, lasers are usually this, it's a point and shoot type of deal. With old technology, you kind of had to, use these analog processing capabilities that weren't really all that efficient. I mean, it's good enough for telling the weather right now, but in times of adversity, you can't always rely on it. It's not always the best. It's kind of why you had all of these hurricanes ravage, the Caribbean. and people can't get out in time. Early warning systems are failing. That a laser, this laser-based technology is going to make it that much more accurate.
Okay, so the laser-based technology will make it accurate for prediction and to guess the hurricane's path.
Right. The whole entire aspect from start to finish.
In that situation, is what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Right.
Okay, really, from start to finish. Wow. Anybody else got any comments on this one? I don't know if you all heard the reading of the article.
Yeah, what's up? How are you guys doing?
Hey, what's going on? You got the chat.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the article, so I'll just comment on the next one.
Okay, all right. Well, let's get on to the next. Let's get that on. This is another one from Engadget. Another one by, Marella Moon. This is July 8th. It's not letting me scroll it down. Airbus is designing a Mars rover to return soil samples. Okay. The company's UK-based team that's already building ESAs for European Space Agency's ExoMars will work on the project. Back in April, NASA and the European Space Agency, or ESA, agreed to figure out whether it's possible to bring Martian soil samples back to Earth. Now the ESA has granted Airbus a $5.2 million contract to design a concept for a rover that can collect those samples on the red planet. The space agency has chosen Airbus team in Stevenage, England, because they're already building the ExoMars rover that's scheduled to head to our neighboring planet in 2021. Unlike ExoMars and all its scientific instruments, the Fetch rover's lone task is to find and collect the canisters of samples NASA's Mars 2020 rover prepares and leaves behind. However, that doesn't mean that the designing the vehicle will be easy. Mars 2020 will drill and dig up soil samples to put in over 30 tubes and will then drop them at various points. The Fetch rover, which could head to the planet in 2026, will have to be able to detect them from a distance, autonomously drive to their location, pick up with a robotic arm, and then keep them in a storage space. It will also have to be able to plot its driving route on its own every single day. Ben Boyes, who will lead the feasibility team at Airbus, explained, "It will be a relatively small rover, about 130 kilograms." Hold this down while I let you all see the picture. All right. It will be a relatively small rover, about 130 kilograms, but the requirements are very demanding. The vehicle will have to cover large distances using a high degree of autonomy, planning its own path ahead day after day. Here's Airbus's early design for the Fetch rover. As you can see, early design. It could take the vehicle around 150 days to collect all the canisters Mars 2020 leaves behind. After that, it has to find the rocket it landed with. It will hand off the sample and will film it when it blasts off, which means it might be able to see the first Mars within less than a decade. That rocket will then rendezvous with an orbiter to bring the samples back to Earth. Of course, all those will only happen if the agency's feasibility studies determine that the mission is worth pursuing and if they can develop the technologies it needs. Now, upon reading this, two things stuck out to me that I'm sure stuck out to you, Mike. The autonomous driving. It mentioned that twice in there, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some type of artificial intelligence going into this, since again, we talked about this. It's around that 2020 technology jump. So what about this stuck out to you?
Yeah, I agree with you on the autonomous driving piece. I when you say artificial intelligence, you have to keep in mind that autonomous driving does include artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Um, and you'll probably have a low instruction set, right? Because there's not really there aren't any roads on Mars for it to navigate. So it's not like they have to stop on the street or make a U-turn or anything like that. They can pretty much write one set of instructions for it to actually do its job. And the only thing it's going to do is collect samples. So when you really think about it, they can pretty much write the code in less than like 1,000 lines to give you a reference of how much line of code is needed to even get a program up and going. It could be anywhere between 50,000 to 1,000,000 lines of code that has to be written.
Whoa. 50 to 1,000,000 for what again?
For instructions on a program for autonomous driving or artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Windows has something like 30 million lines of code or something like that. I forget the exact number, but it's in the millions. But it shows the complexity of goes into these projects.
So do you think this will be part of the push for general intelligence, research, so they don't have to, program, each individual process that it's going to have to do?
Yeah, I think what happens is the activities of the device itself is gonna record a lot of the movement information and duration for its time there, and then it'll report it back, and it can kind of map out what exactly transpired in the time that it was there and things of that nature, and they'll probably share that information going forward on the open source market.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And I can imagine once they share the information. Well, you said probably share the information on the open source market, that other private companies is gonna take the information and run with it.
I don't think necessarily private companies would do it, but I think what's going to happen is you're going to see more open source projects come into play that would allow everybody else to participate. So you have European Space Agency, you have NASA, you have Boeing and Lockheed. You have all of these mega whales in terms of financial aspect that are major players in terms of space technology and advancement. But what happens to the lower, the guppy fish, such as ourselves, who want to get involved but need information to make it sustainable for a project on the ground?
Okay. Well, I can answer that. I believe, having worked in the contracting realm for about 18 years, as long as the government, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. As long as the government mandates that small businesses, and of course, small depends on what industry you're in. As far as small businesses, the government still has to try to allocate 23% of all contract dollars across the board to small business. So we're talking, what, $1 billion, several billion to go to Mars? And we need to be in the forefront of that as Black men. In other words, I would ask a congressional candidate, how about you set up another category of business instead of women-owned, veteran-owned, and all that? How about Black male-owned? Because we've been pretty much locked out. And then we start these companies, we team up, we provide a certain, and we'll probably end up being a little guppy, attached to the shark that is Lockheed or Raytheon or Khaki or Booz Allen. But at least we're getting something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm good.
Exactly.
And I'm talking, I'm coming at it from a very high level, but those are if we're going to spend billions to try to colonize Mars, we need to be right there. And we got all this other stuff distracting us. And I'm glad I jumped on this hangout. I hadn't been on there for a while, but if we're going to spend this kind of money, we need to be getting our piece of it too. If the government's spending it, and making sure that they keep that, that small business mandate together. I mean, in place, because I could see somebody coming along trying to dismantle that.
Exactly, and that's the stuff that we've been talking about since we started these space and technology hangouts. But it's good that you're reinforcing our ideas on this. We've been talking about that for a few weeks now.
I mean, hell, I do technical writing. At the very least, every IT project, every project needs documentation, or it didn't happen. Little things like that. You could be, you could sell yourself as a tech writer, for that, and you're the one that's going, and the advantage, you will know just as much as everybody else about whatever it is they're building, because you're interviewing everybody about it. That's just me. I'm just coming at it from, where what I do, but I'm sure all you guys could have some niche or get with somebody. But here's the bottom line. It's about building relationships. Who in the government is spearheading, colonizing Mars? And, it's just a matter of getting to know people, going to functions and whatnot, where all the big where all the sharks are, and get to know some of the sharks.
Okay.
You don't have to like them, you don't have to love them, but you got to show you both have value to each other. They know that they need to show small businesses as getting part of. If they want to win a bid, they got to show a contracting plan. You want to be on that plan, doing whatever it is you do.
Mm-hmm. That's understood. That's understood.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure I'm not telling y'all what you don't already know, but it just seems I don't know. Go ahead.
With what you know in your position, you're just backing up what we've been saying over the past few months.
Okay, so what I'm saying is nothing new to y'all. Okay.
Yeah, you just backing it up. Because you know all about it, so you backing it up.
Okay.
Right, and you actually dropped some really good knowledge.
Thank you.
For example, the the hub zones.
Oh yeah, those videos. Those are my favorite two videos of all the ones I produced. Those are my favorite too.
Right, I totally didn't know anything about that, and then when I saw that, I'm like, whoa!
It's all
I got a couple of hub zones in my region right here, so maybe
Oh yeah.
I can move my business, just address to somewhere in that area and then take advantage.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The thing about hub zones is you do need to have employees first. It's kind of hard. You've got to be kind of established first to take advantage of that. But if you are, I'd say go for it. Or you can go at it from the other position where you're an employee and you know that these hub zones have contracts with the federal government that they have positions they might be struggling to fill. And if you got the skill they're looking for and you live in a zone, you're good to go. You know, because of the 30% rule. But and I say that anti-gravity. Thank you very much for talking about those videos, because what I was trying to show was this stuff is like hiding in plain sight. It's just, you know, connecting the dots. And I ended up in what I showed you was what I figured out over, you know, working in this area for, I've learned a lot of this stuff in like the last 5 years, having been here, as opposed to the prior few years where I was in Jersey, just focusing in a narrow slice, which was environmental work. Right. Mostly state and local bids. I didn't do a lot of federal. I didn't do a lot of federal till I came down here.
Right. I don't know if you mentioned in any other of your videos, but there's also the designation. You can get a certificate for being a minority-owned business, and that's also, you know, jurisdiction prior contracts.
Well, I'm planning, just so you know, I'm planning another YouTube channel that talks about government contracting, or public sector procurement, as I like to call it, because not just, there's a couple of ways to say it. That I just think public sector procurement sounds fancier. But anyway, I'm planning on this.
I saw your video, like I'd say a couple of months later, I saw that.
Which one?
The HUBZone ones.
Okay.
I saw, you know, Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. There was this very small company in Montana called Whitefish or something like that. 3 employees got a $250 million contract to rebuild it. And they were just basically just contracting out their contract. Eventually it got shut down for basically corruption. But if they wouldn't have reported on that, those guys would have made billions, hundreds of millions, I should say.
What specifically did they do that ran them afoul of the law?
Well, basically, you know how like a lot of the electrical grid got taken down,
right?
So, if it was just like a normal thing, like it happened in Florida, they would get help from other utility companies in the region and maybe some surrounding states to send out, you know, those people who climb on the electrical, you know, wiring. And instead of charging the regular like $150 an hour or something, they were charging like $350 an hour, and then they were only paying their contract workers maybe $185, maybe $200, and then pocketing the rest. And you know, Puerto Rico cash strapped, so that really
$350. Okay, so they're paying $350. They're charging $350 an hour, but
they're charging Puerto Rico and the U.S. government
$350 an hour,
but paying out their subcontractors, you know, way less.
You know, it depends. It doesn't sound like it's all that far off base, because keep in mind the multiplier usually is one to cover G&A, to cover your back office, to cover what little profit. So that doesn't, at first glance, sound totally out of line. Now, if you said that they're paying their workers $100 and something an hour, that's not bad, and they're making double that. Okay, 1.7, it's not that far off.
Right,
but I'd have to look at it.
Ran everyone afoul. I mean, you know, kind of got them on the radar is what there was only 2 employees.
It was okay.
Puerto Rico was super cash strapped that, you know, they had to sell off pieces of their utility, you know, public utility company, and it was very bad optically. That's
okay. So basically, they were accused of price gouging.
Exactly.
But my first thought is what they were doing was standard operating procedure. It just is magnified. But when it's done as normal course of business under the radar, nobody notices it. But when you have these contracts come out up against these natural disasters, that's when things, you know, that's when the optics look bad. But based on the numbers you're giving me, they're not that they don't seem to be all that outrageous. It's just that Puerto Rico, unfortunately, is, you know, they can't they had to pay the going rate. Some other company might have come in and done the same thing.
Right.
Maybe they should have charged less. I don't know.
Yeah, that's basically what they're saying. Like when Florida got hit by the hurricane, they were basically charging the going rate about like 175, 185 for those couple of utilities that are helping out.
But they were charging. They were basically price gouging Puerto Rico. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. The numbers themselves aren't bad, but they probably, I don't know how a company can go in there and feel like it can make money, you know, because that's what they're there for. These contractors are about making money. And if they want to make it, they're going to make it off the government. They have no compulsion against that. It's just that, again, the average person doesn't like, a lot of these feds too, they don't like contractors. They don't.
Hey, I don't
socialist mindset.
I don't interrupt you.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail it.
Yeah, Lionel, I think Lionel's back now, so we can go into the third article.
Okay. Did you all hear the one? Well, did I finish? I think my internet dropped. I don't know when it dropped out. Did you all? Did I finish reading the one with NASA and Kepler?
No, we were talking about the rover.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go through NASA and Kepler again. NASA. Okay, yeah. NASA put Kepler to sleep to preserve its remaining fuel. Evidence suggests the spacecraft is running low on fuel. NASA announced today that the Kepler spacecraft, which has been searching for distant Earth-like planets near sun-like stars, is running very low on fuel. So much so that it's decided to put Kepler in a sleep mode to preserve fuel over the next few weeks. Back in March, the agency warned that this could happen soon, and on Monday, the Kepler team observed a drop in the spacecraft fuel pressure, indicating a very low fuel level. So for now, Kepler won't conduct any more scientific observations and will instead rest until August 2nd, when research it has collected over the last 51 days is scheduled to be downloaded. Since May 12th, Kepler has been focused on a patch of sky in the direction of the Cancer constellation, an area it also observed back in 2015. This latest data collection will help researchers confirm any exoplanet candidates noted during the first observation of this region and could help them spot some new ones. In early August, Kepler will be awakened. Its antenna will be pointed back towards Earth, and this data will be downloaded. If all goes well, its next observation campaign will kick off on August 6th, and it will record new data until it's tapped off fuel. Launched in 2009, Kepler has continued to collect data for far longer than the 3-year lifespan it was expected to have, and has found a whopping 2,650 confirmed planets so far. Even if Kepler's mission ends soon, there are still piles of data to be analyzed. NASA says it will continue to support and fund the analysis of that data, which it predicts could result in over 1,000 scientific publications over the coming years. Now, this last sentence, it says NASA will continue to support and fund the analysis of that data. That, to me, screams jobs. So, what about this article stuck out to you?
The number of planets found, for one thing, but that last sentence you highlighted, I said the same thing. There's plenty of gigs. There's going to be plenty of gigs that are going to come from analyzing the data, writing it up, editing it, formatting documents, publishing, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Time to get to know some folks in NASA.
Yeah. Anybody else?
No, I just wanted to echo what Quad B said about the finding and discovery of these other planets or planetoids, and the idea that they can extend the life of a device that was supposed to have a limited lifespan. It just goes to show you that you don't know what some of this hardware is capable of doing until you push it to the limit.
Yeah, because it launched in 2009. So it was supposed to have been done in what, 2012? And
Something to that effect.
yeah, so that's what, 5-6 years that it, yeah, that's like double.
Mm-hmm. My first thought was, wow, this thing's running out of fuel. But then after I've read that, I had to reread this paragraph and thought, well, damn, this thing was living on borrowed time.
Yeah, we read an article a couple of weeks ago how it was a Mars rover. They had a Mars rover. The same thing happened. That it was only supposed to be there. Well, not be there. It was supposed to only do its job for a certain limit of time, but it again went up, over and beyond what it was expected to do, and it's keep on sending the back pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So is this one outside of the universe, or sorry, outside of our solar system, or is that? Am I thinking of a different one?
That one I don't know. Mike may know that one.
Yeah, is this the one that was taking pictures of Pluto? If it's that one, I think it might be.
I thought that was Voyager, but I guess it might have went down that trajectory as well. I'm not entirely sure where they position Kepler, but the telescopes and radios that they have on there are capable of seeing beyond our solar system. So, to my knowledge, at least from what I saw a few weeks ago.
Then it says the orbital height is 94 million miles.
Does it say how many AUDs it is?
Okay,
I guess not.
No, it's not. And that's astronomical units, right?
Yeah.
They use.
$94 million miles will be within our solar system. So
yeah, because you said I remember you saying what was we was talking about Saturn. We was talking about the outer planets, how they were millions of miles. I forgot the number you threw out there.
Yeah, I think it's like Uranus or some of the moons beyond Uranus. I think there was like close to 1 billion miles away or something to that effect.
Okay. All right. It's well, we can easily find that out later. Let's get to this next one. This smart bandage. This is from gadget.com by Swapna Krishna, dated July 9th. Smart bandage can monitor chronic wounds and dispense drugs. Researchers are hoping that this new tech might reduce amputations. Chronic or slow healing wounds are an increasing problem around the world. Okay, that first sentence, yeah, it says a lot. That's why a team of researchers at Tufts University is working on a smart bandage that can keep track of what is going on with the wound and release treatments as necessary. According to a recent article in the journal Small, researchers led by Pariah Mustafalu sought to increase the healing rate of chronic wounds by creating a smart bandage. The wound environment is dynamic, but their healing rate can be enhanced by administration of therapies at the right time, the article says. The smart bandage can monitor both temperature and pH of the wound. If it detects a change, it can diagnose the problem and dispense drugs as necessary, thanks to a central processor, which a doctor can program to administer treatment if certain conditions are detected. A stimuli responsive drug releasing system comprising of a hydrogel loaded with thermal responsive drug carriers and an electronically controlled flexible heater is also integrated into the wound dressing to release the drug on demand, the paper says. The bandage will also monitor treatment to determine if further steps are necessary. It can also provide real-time status updates via Bluetooth. Chronic wounds are one of the leading causes of amputations outside of war settings, author Samir Sonkusale told Digital Trends. Flexible and responsive bandages that can monitor a wound and deliver real-time treatment could be key in reducing the number of these amputations because they can treat a chronic wound quickly to prevent infection and promote healing. Introducing tech into bandages isn't a new concept. There are quite a few of these smart wound dressings floating around. This idea does have a lot of promise, though, especially because the bandage itself can dispense treatment rather than waiting for a doctor's response. It will be a while before it is available for real-world application, and it's quite possible that it never will be. According to the article, the next step for the smart bandage is to test the technology on chronic wounds in animals to see if it is as effective as it was in the experiments. All right. We have what it sounds feasible. It sounds common sense. People don't go to the hospital, don't go to their doctor when they should. They blow off the doctor visit. Some people are scared to go to the doctor, and with this, some people go to the doctor when it's too late. It's past what the doctor can really do to limit damage control. But with this, it helps. It helps, and it says via Bluetooth, which means the person wearing the bandage can monitor it. But I'm wondering if their doctor will have constant updates and to tell a person, hey, you need to come in because the smart bandage is saying this or that. Anyone?
Well, it's another IoT device, so Internet of Things. It has the ability to communicate out for its purpose, and I think you're going to start to see a lot more devices like this come out over the next couple of years, especially with this whole 5G rollout, especially with these smartwatches and smart heart rate sensors and things of that nature that are all connected. Microsoft has been predicting that this is going to be a connected, the next evolution will be that this will be a connected society that every device needs to be on, and it needs to be communicating out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you won't be turning off your computers anymore. You won't be turning off your other accessories, such as your Amazon Alexas and your Google Homes and your Siris and things of that nature. Your smartphone will always be on, and something like this is going to need a constant connection to be on. So.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Right. Also, that a lot of people don't take their medication like the doctor is supposed to. So this takes out that human error, element of it. But to Mike's point, I think Mike's been saying this for a while. So he's our resident IoT preacher.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. And the things he's been saying, we starting to see it roll out more and more and more. With this and a few more other things we went over.
Well, keep in mind that they also have pacemakers that are Wi-Fi enabled. And I think it was last month there was a
that I don't know how I know it. Say again.
No, I was just going to say that there was a security leaks that they found on these Wi-Fi pacemakers that they could be compromised and basically shut down your heart.
That's not good.
So IoTs are going to have, well, especially medical IoTs, they're going to have some of the most secure networks, ever created.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. Every
toward that.
Excuse me.
Are they making progress towards that?
In terms of,
but better securing, like pacemakers and these kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always going to have security teams now. Everybody's required to have some kind of security and compliance team within their organization, or they have to outsource it to a third party, or have some kind of consultant come in like myself. But the thing is that you're talking about millions upon millions of devices talking all at once. Cars connected to the road autonomously, watches, smartphones, smart TVs, Xboxes, and Google Homes, and all of these devices are connecting at once, collecting all this information. Right, those old picture frames were infested with all types of malware. Chinese government listening in on your and watching you. So
I see what you're saying. All of these things are going to be talking at the same time, and they're going to need be some type of security.
That's where the blockchain comes in, to secure and authenticate these these pieces of data that are moving around, as well as the devices that are moving around, because you don't want a traffic light that is Wi-Fi enabled or 5G enabled being compromised by some bad actor who decides that I'm going to make all the traffic lights go green and then cause a collision on the road with these autonomous vehicles.
Now, as you paint the picture more and more, as we do these shows more and more, and you start painting pictures more and more, I'm starting to see the bigger picture. I'm starting to see it, and I'm starting to connect the dots more and more. I'm starting to see it. Excuse me. And it's interesting. All right. Any other comments on that one?
No.
All right. Our next article is from Ars Technica, by Scott K. Johnson, July 9th. Building the world's highest resolution telescope. A bunch of smaller mirrors pretend to be one giant one. If Lower Observatory Gerard Van Bell gets his way, he'll soon be watching an exoplanet cross the face of its star. Wow. Hundreds of light years from Earth. He can't show you that right now, but he should be able to when the new mirrors are installed at the Navy Precision Optical Interferometer in northern Arizona. They're arriving now and should soon start collecting starlight and making it the highest resolution optical telescope in the world. Van Bell recently showed ours around the gigantic instrument, which bears almost no resemblance to what a non-astronomer pictures when they hear the word telescope. There are a couple of more traditional telescopes and dome-top silos on site, including one built in the 1920s in Ohio, where it spent the first few decades of its life. The best way to improve imagery on these traditional scopes is to increase the diameter of the mirror catching light, but this has its limits. Perfect mirrors can only be built so large. The Keck telescopes in Hawaii pushed the boundary by constructing a 10-meter mirror made of many small hexagonal mirrors arranged together. The Keck works because the only requirement for a telescope, Van Bell explained, is that every ray of celestial light must travel exactly the same distance, even as it strikes the telescope's primary mirror, bouncing off the smallest secondary mirror at the telescope's snout and arrives at the camera. No matter where light hits the hardware, every possible bouncing path must be the same length to within 50 nanometers, just 1/1000th the width of a human hair. A bigger mirror provides two advantages. It catches more light, making fainter objects visible, and it produces a higher resolution image. If you give up on the first advantage, you can go all in on the second by laying out a handful of small mirrors over a considerable distance. The total mirror area and therefore light collection won't be that great, but the tremendous diameter up to 11. That's the principle behind the Navy Precision Optical Interferometer, a Y-shaped installation with a functional diameter of up to 430 meters. 3 vacuum evacuated tubes run along each arm of the Y capable of carrying light from a telescope mirror to the center at various points. A 5-inch telescope mirror bounces starlight to a cylinder affectionately called a lizard head that redirects it down one of those tubes. Currently, the instrument works with up to 6 of these mirrors at a time, spanning a total diameter of 100 meters in zoom configuration, or hugging the center when in a wide angle mode. All right, this is, get this in the picture also. This is where it starts to get tricky. It still has to be true that the light hitting all these mirrors travels the same distance to within 50 nanometers before hitting the camera. That's made a bit tricky by the hardware. If there are 2 mirrors on an arm of the Y, one is obviously farther from the center, but the sky itself poses other challenges. As stars appear over the horizon, their light has to travel across their array to hit the mirror on the far side. Something has to be done to very precisely sync up all these rays of light. Get this in the picture. That's why there are a series of extra tubes extending off the building that houses the camera. Mirrors are placed at different positions in each tube to make light that had a shorter route run an extra lap, so to speak. Inside the building, there is a second set of fine-tuning tubes to accomplish the same task with increasing precision. Instead, each of these tubes, the mirrors sit on movable carts. And on the cart, there are 3 more levels of adjustments: a level arm on the cart, a voice coil, like a speaker driver, on the level arm, and a tiny expanding piezoelectric crystal on the voice coil. The end result is that the light path can be dialed in to even less than the 50 nanometer requirements. Once properly adjusted, the light is ready to meet a camera. But if you're expecting to see a simple little electronic box stuck on the end of these tubes, as I was, you're way off. Instead, you enter a climate control room that looks like a college physics classroom just after the students left. Tubes enter through the wall and end. The light shoots out into the open room. An incredible series of hand-sized mirrors arrayed on tables, referred to as the switch yard, redirect the light toward an enclosed table on the side of the room that itself holds a Tinker Toy arrangement of mirrors, lighting splitting panes, and prisms. Here, light comes from the various mirrors, is combined and fiddled with before finally traveling down a fiber optic cable to reach the image capturing sensors in the next room. To be fair, this particular setup is about to be replaced by a modern version that is slightly less complicated. There are still a couple of mirrors in each line, but they will feed into delicate fiber optic lines connected to something resembling an integrated circuit chip that performs all the functions of the current camera table, only in miniature. Behind that lies new off-the-shelf cameras built for medicine. It's all this technology that came out of astronomy, went into the medical imaging for mammograms for doing fluorescent microscopy, Van Bell explained. It's all been commercialized, and so it's easy to use now. It comes with software. As crazy as this massive contraption is, it has worked like a charm for about 20 years, but it has actually never been used at the full potential resolution. Place the telescopes on the very ends of each arm because the only thing worth seeing at such high resolution are too dim to be captured by the 5-inch mirrors currently in use. That's about to change with the upgrades that have begun arriving. The 40-inch telescopes are being installed, which will boost the amount of light collected by a factor of 50. Each new telescope is mounted on a trailer that will allow it to be moved between positions before much more easily. The light will be bounced into the vacuum tubes just as it is now, with no other changes needed. But what is the telescope used for, you ask? The U.S. Navy's interest in this facility is in cataloging the position of objects very precisely. While Navy ships aren't exactly following the North Star anymore, the world's GPS navigation still depends on the stars in parts. Stars define the reference frame used to pinpoint the position of GPS satellites so that their signals can tell you exactly where you are. And astronomers have taken advantage of the Navy's interest. Scientists at the Lowell Observatory have used this telescope to study the surfaces of nearby stars, for example. And with new mirrors comes new possibilities. The thing that I really want to do, what would be just kind of mind-blowing, Van Bell says with a grin. We're finding more and more planets around other stars, and some of them line up so they pass between the host and us, and we could, excuse me, and we could actually make a movie of the shadow of another world as it goes in front of its hosts. It's not quite imaging the surface of the planet, but you're basically seeing not planet, which is kind of cool. They'll also be able to push further into still forming stellar systems of planets. Astronomers have imaged some of these rotating disks of dust and clumping baby planets, but we can't make out too many details. At the wavelength used by these telescopes, we can really only see the cold outer reaches of these disks. With the new, larger mirror, Van Bell and his colleagues should be able to see into the warmer portions of the disks, while liquid water could exist and planets could be forming. This is, after all, how the game is played in astronomy. Build a better telescope and see the next level of things you only dreamed of. Now, reading this, what stuck out to me, and what stuck out to me was I remember you saying that get a old abandoned school and hook up telescopes to, and all of a sudden you got a facility, you monitor in the sky. That was the main thing that stuck out to me on reading this. Now, what stuck out to you about it? I don't know if you're still there.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. When I mentioned the old facilities that are being closed, I was just using Chicago as an example because Chicago closed like 50 plus public schools, and I don't know what exactly they're doing with them, but those type of facilities could be actually utilized if you have the engineering ingenuity to actually create a telescope out of the facility itself. I think I talked about this before. That the Russians have like a 9-story building that they turn into like a mega telescope, and the whole building is just used as a telescope with people inside that are actually collecting all this information. See if I can find a link after the hangout, but it's a very interesting concept to do. If you look at all the engineering work that's involved in that, that's got to be thousands of man hours that go into just researching, putting that together, and then you take on the human labor aspect of it. That's jobs being created. That's just a whole lot of engineering that's involved.
Mm-hmm.
that's beyond my skill set. I mean, I went to school for electronics, computer electronics and computer engineering, but I didn't delve into this, this sort of realm. This is really big, even for me.
Really? Wow.
So what separates? Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead and talk. I'm pretty sure you're going to ask the same thing I was going to ask.
So what separates this just from general kind of like mechanical engineering or electrical engineering? Is it more physics based, you'd say?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just going to say that to answer your question, I think there's just a whole lot that goes into this. It's not just physics, but there's all types of people that have some form of engineering background that probably put their heads together and offered their their ideas at the same time. Because that's not a one-man job. That's like, I can't even count how many engineers must have been behind that.
And this is the Russian thing you're talking about, right?
Say it again.
The what you're talking about is the Russian building, right?
No, there's a facility in somewhere in Russia that they turned into a big telescope. It's in the middle of a city, but it's an actual building. If you drove by it, you wouldn't be able to tell that it's a telescope, but it has all these gamma arrays on the outside of it, used for collecting information.
Question. Sorry, I was away for a bit. Question. What is
cool.
The advantage of building a telescope out of a regular office building? Is there some advantage, or I'm just trying to figure out why is there any advantage?
The structure.
Okay, to being in the city. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly what they use that for. I guess it's classified information as to what they use it for. But when you have a particular structure already set out, it kind of eliminates 50% of what you need to build out.
Okay, right. So
in terms of
retrofit.
That. For example, they kind of retrofit a lot of and then in retrofitting, it takes less time to actually build out the facility itself. I've seen smokestacks used for cell phone towers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Old water towers also. Kind of unsightly, but they do the job.
Well, you're starting to see some churches now too. Some of these old churches that go back 200-300 years that have these high peak steeples. Cell phone companies are actually subsidizing the cost of the church by putting their 4G antennas on there.
Mm-hmm.
My internet keeps dropping out. I don't know why.
Wait,
I'm dropping.
Gotta go to church.
Amen.
Well, what were you saying right now? You said you were dropping out?
I was saying my internet keeps dropping out.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any other points on that one?
No.
Let's get to the next article. This is another one from Ars Technica. This one is by Megan Guess. Tesla strikes. I may sound energetic. I just drank some black tea with no sugar. It makes me it gives me energy. Tesla strikes another mammoth energy storage deal in California. Lithium-ion battery projects are becoming economically viable. Ulysses, lithium-ion battery projects are becoming okay. Late last week, California utility Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, asked the state to approve 4 lithium-ion battery storage projects. three of which would be owned and operated by a third party, and one built by Tesla will be owned and operated by PG&E itself. One of the projects spearheaded by Vistra, which recently merged with Dynegy, could become the world's first grid-scale lithium-ion battery installation to store more than a gigawatt hour of energy. Tesla's project is also huge. It would deliver 730 megawatts of energy, but Tesla's contract suggests the utility could opt to increase the size of the battery to 1.1 gigawatts per hour. The Tesla installation is expected to discharge 182.5 megawatts for 4 hours, hence the 730 megawatts an hour number. But the contract could be bumped up to a discharge duration of 6 hours, which would result in just under 1.1 gigawatts an hour of storage owned by PG&E. For comparison, last year Tesla completed the largest lithium-ion battery installation in the world in South Australia. That battery system clocked in at 100 megawatts, or 129 megawatts per hour of storage. Storage of this size allows the utility to add more renewable energy because if wind speeds drop or cloud cover hurts solar, a battery can kick in to meet the rest of that load. The Tesla PG&E battery would be located at the Moss Landing station in California near Monterey Bay and home to the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. PG&E said it expects the battery to be completed by 2019, pending the approval of the California Public Utilities, or CPUC. Vistra Dynegy also bid to build a 300 megawatt battery installation that would be able to be discharged for 4 hours at 1.2 gigawatts per hour. The battery would be among the largest in the world and would also be located at the Moss Landing site. A press release from the company projects that the installation would be completed by the end of 2020. The project would be supported by a 20-year contract with PG&E to buy energy from Vistra. A spokeswoman for Vistra said the company had not yet selected a provider to source its batteries from. The project will use 2 existing interconnection points at Moss Landing to connect to the grid, as well as an existing turbine building on the site to house the batteries. The 2 other projects are smaller and include a 75 megawatt and a 300 megawatt per hour battery installation from a company called Hummingbird Energy Storage LLC, as well as an aggregation project from Micronaut Corporation, which will site 100 megawatt by 400 megawatts per hour of batteries at commercial locations. These projects depend on the CPUC's approval to move forward, but the commission decided PG&E to accelerate its solicitation of battery storage in January, so the proposals aren't too surprising. A response from CPUC is expected in 90 days. All right, I am not an expert in battery power, so who wants to break this down both for me and our audience?
It sounds like they're trying to create a new industry. Well, I shouldn't say create a new industry, but get ahead of the curve in terms of energy storage. You definitely need energy storage in terms of these solar arrays that are coming online. I think, and I want to say it might be Doha has like the solar array where it points at a mirror and it collects all the energy from the mirror and it transfer it down into the ground and it redistributes it out throughout the I guess through the state side or the countryside where it's at. But when you have these battery facilities like this set up from Tesla, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get ahead of the curve of subsidizing these battery technologies, so that they can be in the forefront of licensing the technology in the future, because I don't see them producing vehicles going forward. I think that vehicles will just go away in terms of the manufacturing. I think you'll just see them producing batteries and producing and licensing the technology for the batteries. And I think this is just the first step to it.
Okay, you just blew my mind on something, which made me think about something. And I'm looking up this Doha. I'm trying to look at this Doha battery grid. You
Not a
said
battery grid. It's a solar array. So what happens is they have these mirrors on the ground that point to a solar tower that captures the energy from the sun by the mirrors and then transfers it into the ground and redistributes it out to the countryside.
Doha solar grid. God, man, you just mentioned something that blew my mind. Okay, so I think this Qatar Solar Energy. Go ahead.
Go to images. Go to images.
No, you know what? Right.
No, that's not it. It should be look up Doha solar mirror or something to that effect.
Doha solar mirror. Look for more of a air review or something. But yeah, you just said something that blew my mind. Okay, I'll just call it a grid. This is, like a blanket. It's collecting this power and is storing it underground and then distributing that power across the city of Doha.
Right. It's called a solar power tower. That's what they call it.
Solar power tower. Okay. This
right.
looks
So
like
that big pillar that you see in the middle, that's collecting all the, and what you see on the bottom of it is that there's mirrors surrounding it that shift as the sun moves, and they reflect. They reflect the energy back up into the tower, and the tower brings it back down, and then it redistributes the energy out.
So it's then taking that power and distributing it throughout the city of Doha.
Yeah, if you go to the Wikipedia on it, let me put it in the chat. If you go to the Wikipedia on it, I think it refers to how many megawatts it actually produces.
Because what I'm thinking, oh my, look at that. Look at that. Okay, this is a good one. Because what I'm thinking is this, this can transform cities to, you have a smart, you will have to start to have smart cities. With this. Go ahead.
No, I'm just reading. Go ahead.
The solar power tower, also known as central tower power plants or heliostat power plants or power towers, is a type of solar furnace using a tower to receive the focused sunlight. It uses an array of flat movable mirrors called heliostats to focus the sun's rays upon a collector tower, the target. Concentrated solar thermal is seen as one viable solution for renewable pollution-free energy. Okay, so these, like you said, these flat mirrors focus the power to this tower, which collects that energy and stores it and redistributes that energy throughout the city.
Right, and I think the it doesn't really go into how many megawatts it actually produces. It just basically refers to everything as kilowatts.
But that's amazing. That can then spur on smart cities. You know, my mind just jumped to that when you said that.
It's free energy if you really think about it. It's not like, oh, they have to drill and tap for it. It's just, you know, the labor really just comes from the actual manufacturing of the tower itself and the mirrors. I mean, the job, the lowest level job for it would be somebody has to come out there at night and clean the mirrors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I looked at something where it says, I don't know where was it at, but depending on, and I know it's gonna sound funny when I say it, depending on the concentration of the mirrors, when birds fly over, they explode.
Well, yeah, it's almost 1,000 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Right. I'm wondering how does that work? I think it referred to it earlier as a solar furnace. So I'm guessing there's no one inside those plants or inside the building.
My understanding is people underground. So because all the most of the human operations happens underground, not at the top.
So then, okay, so they bounce the solar, energy onto the tower. So is the tower like melting sand to generate power?
I think it turns a generator at the bottom. It's really complex. It's not the first one that's been done, but there's a couple of them that's been done before. And my understanding is that there's a motor generator at the bottom that turns based on the amount of energy that's coming in to produce the electricity.
That's transforming to me. I can see that going a long way.
Well, think about some of these places that have. Think about some of these places that have 6 months of sunlight, like Alaska, right?
Mm-hmm. And you can transport the power to there.
Well, you're transporting power from there because you have 6 months of light.
Oh, the sun doesn't dip. Yeah, the sun doesn't dip below the horizon. Right. When they have the 24-hour, when they have the 24-hour day light, 24-hour day. Yeah. Goodness.
But here's the thing, though. What happens when they go through their 6-month winter? Would it be a wash in terms of the energy stored up while the sun was continuously shining?
Well, that's where those Tesla batteries come in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Somebody said something a few minutes ago. Tesla's not building cars anymore? Or someone said they're looking. Someone thinks that on the panel thinks that Tesla's not going to be building cars, but rather batteries.
I said that.
Oh, okay. Just a quick question: What makes you say that Tesla's not going to be building cars, or do you mean
they're not a car? They're not a car manufacturing company. They can't keep up with demand as it is, right?
Okay.
Because their whole entire operation is really based on building technology and not the actual manufacturing of the vehicles itself.
Mm-hmm.
So the ultimate goal is to license the technology out in the same way Microsoft licenses their operating system to multiple manufacturers for use. Mm-hmm. Microsoft doesn't like to produce computers because it's a lose-lose for them, because it costs money to produce a computer, and they're not in the business of producing computers. They're in the business of selling licenses for computers.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Man, I'm still thinking about this, man.
Sorry to
no, that's
off the topic.
No, it's fine.
I never thought of Tesla as somebody who was a company that would be having trouble keeping up.
Well, in order for you to sustain yourself as a car manufacturer, you have to produce at least 1 million vehicles, and Tesla is nowhere near that.
Oh yeah, man.
God, and he doesn't want to use an assembly line. Okay. Oh well.
Right. The producing of these vehicles is to basically get the technology going from a battery standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Where did you see this? I'm just curious.
Say again.
What do you mean? Where did I see it?
As far as the battery, the whole battery thing, is this just based on something you saw, or is it just you connecting a bunch of dots of various articles and whatnot? Or do you have an inside source?
No, there's been many rumors about Tesla being bought out by either Apple or some other mega right? So the idea is to build Tesla into a affordable company that can actually produce technology that will be licensed out. Microsoft kind of started off the same way with DOS. They that's why they partnered up with IBM, because Microsoft didn't want to be in the business of manufacturing computers. They just wanted to do the licensing of the technology and the software, and IBM will facilitate the rest of it. You see quickly that IBM got out of the market too, right? So about 10 to 15 years ago, they got out of the market and sold their hardware line to Lenovo.
Lenovo, right? No, I guess I'm just saying I haven't been really paying attention, so that's why I'm asking. I guess I need to go back and catch up on that.
Hey, this is the channel. This is the channel for it.
Okay.
Excuse me.
We'll move on to the next article.
All right. CCN.com. July 3rd. The Russian military is building blockchain research lab to combat hacks. The Russian Ministry of Defense is launching a research laboratory that will explore how blockchain technology can be used to bolster national security by preventing hacks on military infrastructure. Russia's military technology accelerator, called ERA, is overseeing the construction of the lab, which will test if blockchain can be used to detect and prevent cyber attacks and enhance the military cybersecurity measures, according to Russian newspaper Izvestia. Alexei, an antivirus expert at Moscow cybersecurity firm Kaspersky Lab, believes the technology undergirding Bitcoin can be used to trace the origins of malicious attacks. A hacker often clears the permission log to hide traces of unauthorized access to the device, Malinov told Izvestia. But Malinov said if the log is distributed among several devices using blockchain, it's harder for the hacker to cover his tracks. Interesting. Protecting the state's secrets. German Kilimenko, a former internet advisor to Russia Putin, said the Ministry of Defense is a key driver of major IT developments and research efforts in the country. Blockchain technology is an effective modern tool, said Kilimenko, chairman of the Council of Digital Economic Development. It is already widely used by civil organizations and can be useful to the military. The lab will ultimately fall under the oversight of the Russian Federation, 8th Directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, which is responsible for protecting the state's secrets. The facility is being constructed in Anapa, a coastal Russian town near the Black Sea. The Russian Defense Ministry wants the laboratory to become a technology hub that will initially employ about 200 scientists. As CCN previously reported, a senior official at Russia's central bank said blockchain technology is currently not mature enough to be used on a mass scale. There is still no big industrial solution on distributed ledgers except for bitcoins, said Bank of Russia Deputy Governor Olga Skorobogatov. The technology is not mature enough. It still requires a lot of improvements, both from a security viewpoint and in terms of scalability. Russia has quietly been making steady progress in the cryptocurrency space. In January 2018, Sberbank, Russia's largest bank, announced plans to open its own cryptocurrency exchange in Switzerland, as they are not allowed in Russia. Sberbank also recently opened a blockchain lab in Switzerland. Sberbank has more than 20 blockchain-based pilot projects under development. Russian cryptocurrency entrepreneurs are bullish about the future of Bitcoin, crypto mining, and distributed ledger technology, as CCN has reported. I think blockchain will repeat the history of the internet and probably even be bigger than the internet itself, says physicist Alexander Ivanov, the founder of the Russian blockchain platform Waves. Really, I didn't know they were on about Waves. Okay. I think this is interesting. What he pointed out, it was, where was it? How a hacker often clears the permission log so has unauthorized access to the device, meaning he erases his presence. But if that log is distributed among several devices using blockchain, it's harder for the hacker to cover his tracks, which means the allure of blockchain is if a hacker wants to hack into something, it would take an ungodly number of years to change the log of different of the ledger that's held on different computers. So it's almost, what he's saying is almost like a deterrence. He's using blockchain as a deterrence to deter hackers from hacking into something, because they will have to tend to erase themselves from the logs from the different computers that hold that ongoing ledger of that of what they're trying to hack. I feel smart saying that. Anybody else?
Yeah, it's a security deterrence. If you have a whole entire infrastructure set up, then the whole idea of breaching a network in the traditional sense won't be the same. So you would have to actually hijack an endpoint to complete the whole entire process.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to start at the lowest hanging fruit.
Interesting. Very. I like that. And tell you got something on this?
No, I'm just listening.
All right. Our next article comes from Ars Technica. Wait, did you want to say something, Mike?
Oh no, not at all.
All right. This comes from Ars Technica, dated July 5th. A hydrogen-powered research boat has many advantages over diesel, lab says. A fuel cell research vessel would produce its own water to boot. This sounds like something a person will say, how come this wasn't invented yet? Sandia National Laboratory say a hydrogen-fueled cell-powered research boat is technically and economically feasible today. The lab network has released a report describing the specifications of an ideal hydrogen fuel cell research vessel. Currently, research boats are largely powered by diesel, but a shift to hydrogen fuel cells could offer some significant advantages over traditional technologies. Not least among these could be a complete reduction in carbon dioxide and other emissions to contribute to global warming and sea pollution during use. Building such a vessel would require an entrepreneur to find funding and a buyer, but Sandia's previous work on hydrogen-powered boats has sparked just that kind of entrepreneurship already with a company called Golden State Zero Emission Marine, or GGZEM. GGZEM was founded by a researcher who worked on a earlier Sandia project, studying the feasibility of hydrogen-powered passenger ferries. Now the company is building the world's first commercial hydrogen-powered passenger ferry called the Water Go Round. Nice name. GGZEM confirmed to ours that the Water Go Round is on track to launch in fall 2019. Hydrogen fuel cell powered transportation on water or on land has yet to break into the mainstream. This is in part due to the lack of infrastructure supporting the transportation of hydrogen fuel, and in part due to the fact that hydrogen fuel can be difficult to store. It prefers very cold or high pressure environments. Fuel grade hydrogen also requires energy to make, leading some opponents to contend that unless renewable energy is being used to make fuel, hydrogen's fuel cells really aren't all that green. But there are advantages to hydrogen fuel cells as well. The only emission they release is water. So if hydrogen is made with renewable energy, it is indeed a very green source of fuel. Hydrogen can also be stored and used at will in a way that renewable energy can't be. Just fill up the tank and you're good to go. No need to wait for good conditions or solar panels to start working. For a research vessel, the emissions issue is a big one. If a hydrogen fueled power boat, on a hydrogen fueled powered boat, researchers could take air samples without concern about diesel emissions, sullying the data. Additionally, Sandia reports that hydrogen can be readily used in Arctic oceanographic exploration because hydrogen is not susceptible to the waxing freezing problem of the petroleum-based fuels. An electrically powered hydrogen cell boat is also much quieter, so sonar mapping could be improved. Another advantage is that the waste from hydrogen fuel cells can be consumed. Fuel cells generate pure deionized water, which can be captured for other purposes, such as drinking water for the scientific staff and crew, or other experimental and analytical purposes. The report notes this can offset the weight of potable or experimental water needed to be carried on board. And none of these potential advantages include the significant fact that such a boat would contribute less to climate change than a similar diesel vessel. Sandia worked with the Scripps Institution of Oceanography to determine how the vessel, called the Zero V, would be used and how it would refuel. It also consulted with naval architecture firm Golostan as well as DNVGL, which does risk management for maritime operations. The Zero V is designed to carry fewer people than a ferry, but for a much longer period of time, 2,400 nautical miles, or a 15-day excursion to be exact. It requires propulsion devices on each side of its hull to stabilize the boat if it has to lower equipment to the ocean floor for research purposes. And in addition to 11 crew and 18 scientists berths, the boat needs to house 3 laboratories. Part of the solution was selecting a trimaran boat design. A Sandia press release noted, a trimaran has 3 parallel hulls and is usually used for high-speed boats. The design offers a great deal of space above deck for the tanks and adequate below-deck space for other science instruments and machinery. Scripps also identified ports for call, such as a vessel where hydrogen fuel companies could refuel the boat by truck. Nimitz Marine Facility in San Diego, Moss Landing Marine Laboratory in Monterey, Pier 54 in San Francisco, and Wharf 5 in Redwood City could also accommodate hydrogen refueling operations, the report said. While the vessel that Sandia and its partners developed would be economic to build and is estimated to cost no more than the equivalent diesel powered vehicle. The one thing standing in the way is cost, is operating cost. Unlike with the battery electric vehicle, where initial cost is high, but maintenance and refueling costs are much lower, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles struggle in long-term competitiveness due to the cost of hydrogen fuel. The researchers estimated that using natural gas derived hydrogen fuel, the Zero V will cost 7% more than a comparable diesel vehicle to maintain and keep fueled. But natural gas derived hydrogen fuel offers no overall emissions benefits compared to diesel when the production, storage, and transportation of hydrogen is factored in. Researchers also spoke to two hydrogen fuel companies that said they would be able to produce hydrogen from renewable energies in the quantities that the ship would need. But at that point, the total annual O&M costs for operating the Zero V are 41.9% higher, the report stated. Still, in the Sandia press release, Scripps fleet manager Bruce Applegate was optimistic and compared hydrogen-powered vessels today to solar panels several years ago. Like other game-changing ideas, this approach initially seems expensive, but solar power was very expensive not too long ago, and now it's affordable and widely adopted. Hydrogen fuel cells are just as transformative a technology. All right. Who wants first crack at this article from Ars Technica?
I was hoping Ulysses would be on for this one.
Yeah.
Hydrogen costs is or fuel cell costs are very high because obviously because of adoption, but BMW, Toyota have been very invested into this, and I can see the cost coming down based on the application from a military standpoint. I think I saw a military vehicle that I think it was a tank that had they were demonstrating that had these capabilities with fuel cell, and it said it was so quiet that they could sneak up on the enemy and basically take the enemy out without hearing the tank come down. And you're talking about, you know, a 35, 40-ton tank creeping down the road and nobody can hear it.
That's impressive.
Right.
That's almost like the. Go ahead.
Now, I was just gonna say you can probably start looking at things like autonomous submarines that have fuel cells in them as well.
Now, okay, with the first thing you said, I know when Prius first came out, the all-electric Prius first came out, I heard complaints about that from people saying it's too quiet, I can't hear it coming down the road, and people were actually getting hit by these cars. So they actually had to install sound in it, to a motor, like a motorized sound in it for people
projectors.
Projectors for people to know cars coming down the road. Now with the submarine, I agree with you on that. I just wonder how they can dampen the water around it, the screw pushing the water, the submarine through the water behind it, because most submarines, especially U.S. submarines, I just know about U.S. submarines, are nuclear powered. So, so they will replace the nuclear reactor with this, but the screw, the propeller, I wonder how they would dampen that chopping up the water.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because I don't really have much information on that, but I'm thinking about it from an application standpoint because you have midget submarines that that only holds about maybe 2 or 3 people or 5 people in it. But then you think about an autonomous submarine that's the size of a midget sub, and you have these fuel cells in there, and the range and the capability of a fuel cell inside of a military application such as a submarine, that can actually the adoption rate from that perspective, from a military standpoint, can actually reduce the cost later down to the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Like the I don't know why I do know why I immediately went to the military submarine, but you were talking about the Alvin submarine, that mini yellow submarine that goes to depths that goes real deep.
I was actually just speaking of in general of midget submarines.
Mm-hmm.
I know like
Okay.
countries like North Korea, Iran, and the Germans are very good at making these midget submarines as well. An application like that could actually be useful for a fuel cell because it's so small. It's small as a vehicle, but it's at the same time it has the same it has similar goals, in terms of for energy use or propellant.
Okay.
What's
We
up,
have
Complex?
we have Complex.
Yo,
So
what's up, man? Hey, sorry, guys.
what insight can you give us about this?
Let's see. This is we're talking about hydrogen powered fuel cells.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at like all like the energy sector, there's certain applications for certain things, right? Like so for submarines, hydrogen powered fuel cells is actually probably like the right application. I wouldn't say make a battery powered sub, but hydrogen powered sub or hydrogen powered boat or hydrogen fuel cell. I see hydrogen being useful in those sorts of applications, like for example, so versus hydrogen fuel cells being used in cars, right? Like your average everyday vehicle, not so much. But some that has to like go long distances, yeah, hydrogen fuel cells are actually a real it's a very applicable technology for something like that. Oh, you guys there?
Are you there, Lino?
Oh, okay. Wait. So I'm here, but
I guess he might have got cut out or dropped out or something, or maybe he's board game. But how you doing?
wait, is it just that? I'm good, man. What did we take over their channel? Is that what just happened? We just commandeered it. You know what? That's exactly what just happened, folks. We just took over their channel.
Hey, Mike and Quad B, are you guys there?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
All right. I guess. Oh yeah, he just.
Yeah, this is something I said.
I think I'm getting hydrogen cells with something else. I thought hydrogen cells were, susceptible. How do you say it? Susceptible to blowing up, or is that the giant hydrogen and helium canisters kind of idea that
I think you're thinking of a hydrogen bomb.
No, not that one.
Hydrogen has a high volatility factor to it, yeah, but I mean, in a controlled system though, it's no different than like running like an exotic fuel or something. In an open environment, just throw a match at it and there you go, right? But if you have it in a contained environment, in a safe contained environment, then you can kind of mitigate that risk. So hydrogen does have high combustibility risk to it, but I think the containment units that they have for it are sufficient.
Okay. I think maybe we need to do more research into batteries because I just found a website. I don't know if you guys can see it, but let me show you guys. Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah.
It's called like Battery University. Have you ever heard of this, Mike? Seems to have.
I have.
Oh, what do you think about it? I just saw it, a couple 30 minutes ago or so. Talks about.
I haven't looked at that in years.
But is it a good resource?
It is.
Okay.
Battery University.
So how far does it get you on, in terms of understanding batteries?
Holy crap.
It's pretty layman's term, so you should be able to get it without any problem.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a ton of YouTube sources. Like one I always refer to is Robert Murray Smith. You can look his channel up. He's a British electrical engineer, battery maker, and tinkerer, tester, and all that. He's the dude he was the one who actually made the HINT battery and tested it against the lithium ion battery and showed you all the power output results and all of that. And he documented it on YouTube. So it's unequivocal. And he's got a lot of other battery tech, and he puts a lot of information out there, dude. Like he'll bring me up to speed on battery technology fairly soon. Just check out his channel.
Hey, Lionel, what's going on with your computer, man?
You there, Lionel?
Uh-oh. See him there.
I think maybe bored out.
I think he has a MacBook, so I'm not.
Right. So
Not sure why he keeps dropping out. Go ahead, Noah.
With his internet, I think. Well, what else do you recommend for learning a little bit more about batteries? I have, I guess, some math background and some physics. I don't know exactly how much more I'd have to learn.
It doesn't go any further than Battery University. I mean, they pretty much cover the majority of what you need to know.
Okay, so
yeah,
it
would then become, you're gonna then look at specific applications, right? Like battery it's not necessarily like any sort of difference between like one sort of chemistry versus the other than the chemistry itself, right? But like they all function like the same. So you're just dealing with different types of chemistry. So that's pretty much an application. But once you have like the basics down on how a battery works, it's pretty much going to be across the board.
Oh, okay, I see. Because
there's another dude. There's another dude who has a channel. His name is Yoda Garcia. Let me find his channel. He's actually local. He's like close to me, and he does a lot of his work out of this one electronics recycling facility that used to be around the corner from where my shop was. And so I follow his channel because he has really good vlogging, and he puts a ton of information. Does battery testing, battery building. He builds like he builds power walls. Shows you how to build power walls. Test them. They'll test like different types of battery holder mechanisms so that you can make large packs. So that's another good source. There's a lot of dudes on YouTube that do a lot of things with regards to battery tech.
Hello.
And I find them to be like there's Lionel. There he is.
Lionel is good, man.
Yeah, my internet keeps dropping out. I don't know why.
Uh-oh.
We are still talking about the last article?
Yeah, we were just talking about the batteries. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Y'all ready to get to the next one?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to this next one. All right. This is from Ars Technica, July 11th. Internally, NASA believes Boeing ahead of SpaceX and commercial crew. Both of the companies are well behind schedule, forcing the agency to scramble. All right. One of the biggest rivalries in the modern aerospace industry is between Boeing and SpaceX. Despite their radically different cultures, the aerospace giant and the smaller upstart compete for many different kinds of contracts, and perhaps nowhere has the competition been more keen than for NASA funds. In 2014, both Boeing and SpaceX received multi-billion-dollar awards. Boeing asked for and got 50% more funding for the same task. to finalize the development of spacecraft to carry astronauts to the International Space Station as part of the Commercial Crew program. Since then, both companies have been locked in a race to the launch pad, not just to free NASA from its reliance on Russia to reach space, but also for the considerable esteem that will accompany becoming the first private company in the world to fly humans into orbit. Although both Boeing and SpaceX have established various launch dates, first in 2017 and now slipped to 2018 and 2019, NASA hasn't publicly tipped its hand on which company is actually ahead in the race. Now, however, a new report from the U.S. Government Accountability Office has provided a window into NASA's internal thinking on commercial crew launch dates. The data is several months old, coming from an April 2018 analysis, but it's insightful. All the same. The report shows when NASA believes Boeing and SpaceX will each have completed a single non-crew flight test, a test flight with crew, and then undergo a certification process to become ready for operational flights. This is known as a certification milestone. Based on NASA's schedule risk analysis from April, the agency estimates that Boeing will reach the milestone sometime between May 1st, 2019 and August 30th, 2020. For SpaceX, the estimated range is August 1st, 2019 and November 30th, 2020. The analysis average certification dates was December 2019 for Boeing and January 2020 for SpaceX. These are obviously razor-thin margins, but the new report also indicates that Boeing is ahead in submitting paperwork needed for approval of its various flight systems and processes. This is consistent with what independent resources have told ours, that Boeing is more familiar with NASA and better positioned to comply with its complex certification process. The report was conducted to warn Congress that NASA has no contingency plan for how to keep its astronauts on board the International Space Station after November 2019, when the first Russian Soyuz sent NASA has procured when the last Russian Soyuz seat NASA has procured its schedule to fly home. While NASA is working on potential solutions, there is no contingency plan in place to address the potential gap, the report says. Without a viable contingency plan, NASA puts at risk achievement of the U.S. goal and objective for the ISS. With this report in hand, Congress will probably press NASA to finalize and release such a plan. Previously, NASA has indicated it may turn the first Boeing crewed flight, which would precede the certification process, into an operational flight and extend its mission to the station. It may also seek to delay the return of the final Soyuz mission from November 2019 for 2 months until January 2020, depending on the extent of scheduled delays. However, neither of these measures may prove adequate. All right, so NASA thinks Boeing is ahead of SpaceX in commercial crew. Who wants this one?
I think what you're starting to see is just people's bias is starting to come out. Obviously Boeing is a long-term partner with NASA and the federal government, and SpaceX is a new kid on the block. So even if SpaceX was doing well, you'll probably hear some form of confirmation bias just to try to deter any sort of investment into SpaceX itself. But I don't think that's going to play out too long. SpaceX has the advantage of being the new kids on the block by just building on top of research that's already been done before they even got there.
Hmm.
Well, I will I will say this. I think SpaceX does need to be careful that it's not subjected to the same type of market pressures that Tesla's been getting subjected to with all these all these hedge funds and all these other interests trying to short Tesla out of the EV market, or just out of the automotive market altogether. So I mean, we've been seeing this over maybe the last 4 to 6 weeks. What's been going on with Tesla? So I think but SpaceX is in a different they're in a different environment. It's not like there's a whole bunch of other space firms that are at SpaceX stature, right, where they can pose like a direct threat. Boeing definitely, but by and large, I don't think SpaceX will have to deal with what Teslas have to deal with.
Okay. Any other comments on that one? No? All right, let's get to our next article. We're going to start talking about asteroids. All right, this one is from CNET.com by Eric Mack, dated July 11th. 2 asteroids zipped by Earth hours before anyone noticed. Wow. The bus-sized pieces of space debris whipped by us at relatively close range over the weekend. They almost snuck by undetected, but 2 small asteroids were discovered over the weekend, just hours after they whizzed past us about 72,000 miles away, about 1/3 the distance to the moon. Asteroid 2008 NX and 2008 NW were first spotted by the Palomar Observatory in Southern California on Sunday as they passed our neighborhood on the way back to further reaches of the solar system. Each of the space rocks are estimated to be about the size of a school bus, with a diameter about 10 meters or 33 feet, but they don't appear to be traveling together. That's because 2008 NW was observed traveling at a velocity of 21.3 km per second, or 47,647 miles per hour, or about 5 times faster than 2008 NX. Neither asteroid posed a threat to us, and they also had nothing to do with the fireball that people across the central U.S. saw Sunday evening. In fact, an asteroid passes harmlessly by at a distance to us closer than the moon every few weeks. It is interesting and rare to see a pair zip by so close to one another, however. Scroll this down some more. A number of these asteroids are discovered for the first time in our cosmic review, after they've already passed by the point of closest approach to Earth, as was the case with the pair. This is often due to the small size and relative darkness of many asteroids. They're just hard to spot until they're really close. Last month, the tiny asteroid 2008 LA was discovered just before it slammed into the atmosphere. Fragments of the resulting meteorite were later recovered in Botswana. As always, heads up. Now, this article stated a number of asteroids are discovered for the first time in our cosmic review. Oh, no, not this one. Asteroid. Okay, in fact, as an asteroid passes harmlessly by at a distance to us closer than the moon every few weeks. When he said that, what immediately popped up in my head was asteroid harvesting. If asteroids are always coming and passing by Earth relatively close, then asteroid harvesting can be a profitable business in the future.
Yeah, but the question is how, because the asteroids are unclaimed, what happens when multiple nation states and as well as private industries, or I should say private sector, decides to go after that one asteroid? And there's only so much room for for competition, right? So you end up having some some issues of real estate at that point, of who owns what and who has access to what.
That's a good point. Anybody else?
No.
That's I was going to say that's actually a good point. I was maybe thinking of a scenario where maybe it's actually not a scenario where you have national interests, right? But they're private. All the interests are actually private. You know, like a SpaceX or like the Bezos space firm and all of that, where the the ownership of these private interests, right? They span across the board, right? There's people from all walks of life that own Amazon, for example, or own Tesla or own SpaceX. So maybe it becomes not even like a national type of issue, but more of like a private one.
Well, okay, I know what I think I know what Mike's saying. If you do harvest a asteroid, the asteroid is going one direction. Let's say the Earth, and the Earth is going spin in another direction, and you harvest an asteroid over someone's country, then all of this political politics is going to come into play.
Well, you said harvested over the country?
So, you got, Earth is spinning in this one direction and the asteroid is coming past Earth.
You're breaking up a lot.
Okay, hello, can you hear me? Hello, hello?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, let's say Earth is spinning one direction and the asteroid is coming in the opposite. It's coming, but the way it's coming is counter to the direction the Earth is spinning. So a private company or a country captured the asteroid, but it happened to capture it over another country. I'm just trying to say, what if politics say, hey, you captured the asteroid over our airspace, our low Earth orbit airspace, you need to give it up.
Those ground rules haven't been established, and I don't think they'll be established at all. There's no real way to map out.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that there's no real way to map out who owns what real estate in LEO, which is a low Earth orbit, or outside of the LEO itself, which would be high Earth orbit. That's been the problem for a long time with satellites, right? So who determines which satellite can go up and where it docks itself, or in which place in orbit can it remain in, and nobody really has any rules. It's really just the wild west up there, and you can potentially start to see people who don't like each other, whether it's two private companies who are competing for a contract, or two nation states that don't like each other, and our adversaries can possibly start shooting down satellites, possibly start shooting down objects that or vehicles that are trying to dock themselves on top of moving asteroids because they don't want to share the resources. This can get really nasty from a military standpoint.
Well, wasn't that part of what the Chinese strategy was to kind of circumvent certain communications, blocks or communications barriers, and so one way that they got around it was actually just deploying satellites.
From what I understand, the space is governed by like the same rules as international waters. So that's kind of why they had like agreement not to militarize space. But then
maritime,
yeah, maritime laws, yeah. But then people militarize space anyways. So especially with satellites. So yeah, Mike makes a good point. It could get very ugly in the U.S. Just now, Donald Trump announced, Space Force.
Just about to go there.
So you know, there'll be more space forces, and you know. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's a thousand satellites above Earth right now, and it's probably going to be twice as much in the next 10 years. As some of them come down and need to be replaced and whatnot. And the cost of satellite technology is greatly reduced down to hundreds of dollars, if that. But when you start talking about these asteroids that are limited in their availability, who gets to put claims on it? I mean, who? I mean, will there be some kind of United Nations treaty that has to be declared first before, you know, multiple private industries decide to get involved? I mean, what happens with private military corporations like Blackwater that decide to start building out their own space drones to go shoot down?
Yeah, I was going to say,
from a mercenary sense.
Yeah, isn't there something? I mean, isn't there something along the lines of a space treaty, a UN-based space treaty, already on the books?
Yeah, that was in the 70s, or at least I think under Reagan. I think under Reagan they signed it. I don't think Carter had anything to do with that, but I think under Reagan they signed something like that.
It was under Reagan, I believe, right? Like
under Reagan.
Star Wars, they call it Star Wars Initiative or something.
Yeah, it was under Reagan.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, Doc? Man, how you doing?
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
It's good, bro.
Let's get to this new article. This next article.
Well, actually, let me say one thing. I think I think people are just gonna do it anyways. I think the general how things are going right now, people are just gonna start doing whatever they want, and there'll probably be some retaliation, and then maybe people will come to the table. But for now, as Wild West.
The thing is, how do you prove who shot down what satellite or who shot down which planetary vehicle that was trying to mine that asteroid? How do you prove that? You're not up there. No one's up there, right? And who's going to own up to that?
You can't. Well, I got a question on that. What was I going to say? I was really going to just piggyback on what Noah just said, but isn't it possible to just auction off sections of space same way you might do a lottery for land? Or
who owns it?
I mean, yeah, I know who owns it. That's why you have to just auction it off. Everybody agrees to a certain auction, perhaps, and auction sections of space. I don't know. It's a complex thing, I suppose.
Well, that would make sense in on Earth when you have land that's available that you can physically stand on, but you can't physically stand in space. I mean, it's just constantly moving objects moving around. I mean, how do you put claims on that?
Yeah. I don't know. I imagine it kind of like, I guess maybe Star Trek, where I guess that's in the future for us, but more like, well, this is Earth space, or this is the solar system space. This is our space territory, and I guess it's disputed among different countries. But as far as like individuals holding certain areas of space, I don't like. This is my neighborhood of space. That's your neighborhood of space. I don't know if that's possible because, like you said.
So you're talking about colonization or through colonialism,
so to speak.
The United States tried to do that with the moon by allegedly putting their flag on the moon. Allegedly,
yeah.
I don't see any evidence of that, but they tried to do the same thing with Mars by being the first ones to, excavate it, so to speak, with their rovers. I think the Russians got there first back in the 70s, but you don't see them trying to put their flag on everything and determine who can come there and who can't.
Yeah, because everybody else gets to Mars. I mean, it's not like the United States is going to do anything about it. So,
right, it's a blue-eyed planet. It's an Anglo-Saxon planet now. Like, yeah,
a red Anglo-Saxon planet.
Oh my god.
Hey, gentlemen, it's been nice. I'm gonna have to hop off here.
All right.
Ulysses,
have
what's
a good one,
going
man.
on? I haven't seen you around. And anti-gravity, them
Damiette.
Yeah.
Linnell, Ulysses, it's been real, but I gotta make a run real quick for the wife. So, good. Yeah, take care. Have a good one.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get to this next article. Back Gizmodo. Cosmic ray mystery finally cracked thanks to supermassive black hole beaming energy straight at Earth. I like this photo. It's a pretty cool photo. This is by Ryan F. Mandelbaum, Thursday. Every so often, protons and entire atomic nuclei strike the Earth with extremely high energies, much higher than what scientists can produce in their most powerful physics experiments. Since the discovery of cosmic rays 100 years ago, no one knew for sure where the most energetic of these particles came from until now. On Thursday, scientists from institutions across the globe announced they have confirmed a source of these ultra high energy cosmic rays, thanks to combined data from light and a single high energy neutrino particle. That source is a blazar, a supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy, emitting high energy jets of light and radiation pointed straight at Earth. The discovery is a highlight of the new multi-messenger era of astronomy, in which particles other than light, like neutrinos, aid in science's understanding of the cosmos. After a century, we finally found a source of the cosmic rays. Francis Housen, University of Wisconsin physicist and principal investigator of the IceCube Neutrino Observatory, told Gizmodo. But what's equally as exciting is the way we found it. On September 22nd, 2017, the IceCube detector at the South Pole spotted a particle called a neutrino with an incredible amount of energy, 290 tera electron volts, or more than 290,000 times the energy of proton at rest, and tens of times more energetic than the protons at the Large Hadron Collider. The detector's computers calculated where the neutrino came from and sent the coordinates to a message to astronomers around the world. 6 days later, the Earth orbiting Fermi Large Area Telescope reported that a blazar called TXS 0506 plus 056, 4 billion light years away, was in the same spot, according to the paper published today in Science. A bright black hole at the center of a galaxy was eating up the dust surrounding it and spitting out high energy jets of particles and light in our direction. Other telescopes continued looking to get more detail. We sensed this neutrino, the infirmary told us there was a blazar right in the path of the neutrinos. Then all the telescopes started looking, said Housen. If there hadn't been a multi-messenger campaign, this source would never have been identified as something special. The discovery was a long time coming. The story goes that in 1912, Austrian physicist Victor Hess realized that there is more radiation higher up in the atmosphere where particles slam the Earth from outer space. Sure, we get radiation from the sun and cosmic rays from supernovae, but physicists don't figure out what sent the highest energy particles, the protons and entire atomic nuclei. These will have energies higher than 10 to the 20th electron volts, which, well, that's a lot. More recently, scientists observed the coincidence of neutrinos and light from the whale, studied supernova of 1987, explained Freya Blickman, a physicist at the Vrije Universiteit Brussels, who was not involved with the study. Ever since then, physicists have been trying to test if it is indeed true that astrophysical objects are producing signatures as, for example, cosmic ray particles, optical light, radio, and neutrinos. And since the IceCube detector at the South Pole fully came online in 2010, it has measured extremely high energy neutrinos without an obvious source. Today, announcement ties all of these loose ends together. At IceCube 86, strings are buried under a mile of ice with over 5,000 light sensors covering a cube kilometer on a side. Neutrinos barely interact with matter on Earth, but when they have enough energy, they can interact with the ice near the detector and produce a flash of resulting particles traveling faster than the ice would normally allow. The neutrino pointing right back toward the blazar is most likely not a coincidence. Thanks to the Fermi satellite, we found 3 sigma for it to be chance. We found 3 sigma for it to be chance. Elisa Bernardini, professor for gamma ray and neutrino astroparticle physics at the Humboldt University in Berlin, explained to Gizmodo. That means it leaves very little room for saying the neutrinos aren't correlated with this particular object. Physicists have since looked at almost a decade of past IceCube data and found even more high-energy neutrino events coming from TXS 0506 plus 056's direction in 2014 to 2015, according to a second paper published today in Science. That explains the neutrinos, but how does it explain the ultra-high energy cosmic rays? Cosmic ray origins have remained a mystery because they don't travel in straight lines. They are bent by the magnetic fields permeating the intervening space. That means if you look at the direction from which they came, it probably won't be aligned with whatever spat them out. This specific blazar's cosmic rays probably didn't hit the Earth, for example. Neutrinos and photons don't bend, though. High energy photons aren't necessarily indicative of cosmic rays and can come from electrons, said Bernardini. But high energy neutrinos will only appear from interactions with hadrons, things made from quarks like protons or even entire atomic nuclei, things like cosmic rays. So not only do blazars produce high energy gamma rays, but they also produce high energy protons and nuclei, which then produce neutrinos. In other words, blazars can produce the ultra high energy cosmic rays that have perplexed scientists for decades. This discovery certainly wasn't easy, said Blickman. You have no choice of experiments in astronomy. You just have to be lucky that something flies into your telescope or that your telescope was pointing the right way when something extreme happens. And while this may be an exciting observation, it's just one, so it can't explain all the cosmic rays or how they're made. We clearly need more data. Our source is not enough. Physicist Spencer Klein at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab told Gizmodo. Now that we found one accelerator, we like to find more and find out how they work. All of this just goes to show the importance of having lots of telescopes working together, observing the skies. Had we not sensed the neutrino, this would not have happened, said Housen. Any single telescope could not have made this breakthrough. All right. I understood some of what they were saying, but not enough to give a comment on this one. Anybody?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. Maybe someone can kind of explain what's going on with it.
Hello?
Anyone else there?
No, I said it's beyond my knowledge.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, I guess we're all clueless on this one. We have to do a little.
Yeah, let's do a little bit more digging on this one. I'm gonna a couple more topics for tonight. I'm gonna leave to next week.
Okay.
I don't want to get too hoarse. I'm going to skip to NASA's plan to commercialize space. I don't know if you all share this video. This will be our last topic for tonight. I don't know if you all saw the video.
Repeat that again. I didn't hear you.
No, I'm saying I'm going to skip to this. I'm going to save some topics for next week. I'm going to skip to the NASA's plan to commercialize space. The video you sent out earlier this week. It's I saw the video. It's supposed to be like a 3 or 4 part video. I was saying this is going to be our last topic for tonight. Yeah, NASA's plan to commercialize space. I saw the video, and in the video, he was saying that NASA was going to help in the commercialization of space, not by building physical objects, but to help those public and private companies in getting them to commercialize space by identifying, I think it was 3 areas that he pointed out to, no, I just found it. It was 3 areas: policy, enabling commercial space, and enabling command. Through these 3 areas that public and private companies could commercialize space. I don't know if anybody else seen the video or not.
So is this an official plan by NASA, or just kind of spitballing that they're doing?
Well, how he explained it, NASA identified those 3 areas. Those 3 main areas. I want to put that in main areas for public and private companies to go into to commercialize space. I think he was saying there's like 21 other areas, but those are the top 3 main areas. I should have took those while I saw the video.
They're basically getting into a getting into like a the equivalent. Well, I'm saying the equivalent of space construction. Kind of like you're building up infrastructure on Wall Street or on Downing Street, like in London. They're talking about building out infrastructure in space.
Yeah, this right now what they're saying is this construction. This is going to be a low Earth orbit. How fiber optics, they can build fiber optics better in low Earth orbit because the what's the one I'm looking for? The ZB land, the product they use for the fiber optics doesn't crystallize in low Earth orbit, and therefore it's able to transmit much more information. But that was just an example of the construction in low Earth orbit.
I like how they had the 3D printing kind of arm outside. I don't know how feasible that would be since it's traveling really fast, around the planet, but something that could, attempt to fix itself while it's still orbiting could be very valuable.
Mm-hmm. And I believe we touched on something like that a couple of weeks ago, how they were saying things wouldn't, I think it was 2 weeks ago, things wouldn't be constructed on Earth. They'll supply the materials to construct it in a 3D manner and do the constructions in space. That's more economically. Yeah.
Third question on that. Are there even, I guess, methods, like building methods, techniques to even build structures in space yet?
Yeah,
So,
you have
like,
the ISS.
well, okay, I guess that's an example. Yeah. So, but what about a larger scale than that? Because I'm thinking, if you remember in The Expanse when they was building that, I guess what was it called, the Behemoth, that big old ship for the Mormons.
Yeah, I
You
remember
know,
that.
Yeah, something as colossal on that scale. Do we have techniques and how long? Like building Star Destroyers basically in space. Can we do that yet? Or how many examples of that do we have besides the ISS?
Probably be cheaper.
What they're basically doing right now is they're trying to build neighborhoods in space from a commercial standpoint.
So you're talking about Elysiums, okay?
Right, and I think the most expensive part of just a lot of the space sector is getting stuff from the Earth up into space. That's majority of the cost. But if they can do it already while they're in space, that dramatically cuts down the price.
Right. It cuts down the price to sending the stuff in space.
Or if we had like a space elevator, yeah, that would definitely cut down the price.
Maybe an escalator.
I can't even laugh right, man. I can't even laugh right on that one.
Interesting.
I saw something. I just open mic. I saw something. I don't know how long ago. It's talking about the space elevator and how it's not feasible right now, but it's just an idea. I understand what you're saying, anti-gravity. You can't build the stuff here on Earth and send it out there. It costs too much to fuel. It's more feasible to send the supplies, the materials to up in space, to build it up in space, and that way you can use the drones and
put it all together.
Right, to put it all together, because that's what they did in the video we saw 2 weeks ago, and that's what they were doing on The Expanse, using drones.
Right. Yeah, and The Expanse, when they were building the Behemoth, they could do that because they were belters, so they were using the materials they were mining off the asteroids to build it.
Yeah,
sort of like when they was building the the Death Star. Everything's being done out in space. So
right. Yeah. Or if you guys ever watched, for example, Gundam, where they had this 3 space elevators, they were controlled by, I guess, blocks of countries. It was well defended, but then they could launch stuff up there, and then they had giant solar panels to bring the solar energy down.
Yeah, that was also in a few nerds out there, Mega Man back in the day. The space elevator was featured in one of the games, so I mean, it's not an old idea.
Right.
Well, it's not a new idea. That's what I meant to say. He's muted up.
Hello?
I was just asking his Ulysses studio.
I think he put something in the chat. He said he's going to the store to get something.
Is your voice all right today? What's going on, man?
No, all that reading. I'm not a big talker, so when I do a lot of reading, it tends to do whatever to my voice.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But when I'm doing kind of the reading for the channel, steadily I've been able to talk more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too. I've extended my talking range. If I would have done this straight from the get-go, I would have been like this 3-4 articles ago. But I like. Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
I like the space and the technology of the space. It's interesting because I watch The Expanse, and I'm able to interweave what they're doing in that. Sci-fi. Hello, hey, how you doing? I'm able to weave what they're doing there to what we talking here, and I'm seeing a bigger picture. I'm learning more. I'm learning. So okay, I can connect that with this, and I have a generalized idea of what I'm looking at, or when they talk, or whatever they do. You know, I'm learning more.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you can think of it, then that means it can be done, or it has already been done in the past. And that's why I try to focus on this whole space thing, because it's going to be a lucrative market, but it's going to be an open market too. So it's not like it takes a whole lot of money for us to get involved in this.
Hmm.
I mean, most of the upfront cost is just going to come from equipment, and that's it. But we don't need like a big data center or anything like that. You have Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure and GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, that leverages the cost of startups. So my estimates is that it can cost anywhere between five to 20 grand.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't need to be in the office. We have computers that can be connected up, through your cloud computing platform.
That's well. As more and more I go down this technical, learning this stuff, I'm open to it because I see. Maybe it's because we talking about it more, and I'm learning about it more, and it's like once you buy a car, you start to see everybody else driving the same car. But as we talk about it, learn about it more, I'm starting to see more and more of it on YouTube. And again, that can be the algorithm feeding me like videos. But
It's a time of the year too. You just had asteroid week or asteroid day. You had a lunar eclipse, or the solar eclipse that just happened, I think.
yeah, they're red, blue, the blue blood moon we talk about.
Yeah, the Bud Moon.
Right. So it's been an active season, especially with the recent docking of the SpaceX delivery of the AI pod. Um, you know, all this stuff about NASA and a space military. So it's been a lot of activity in the news lately. So it corresponds with with some of our discussions. So that's why wanted to bring it to the forefront that we should be talking about it, if not getting involved in it.
Hey, I welcome it. To tell you the truth, I'm gonna leave some of these um, topics for next week. But yeah, I welcome it.
Right. And the good thing about now that it's being brought to the private industry is, before it was just, a government's game. So now I see a lot of, retired space medicine doctors, moving into the private sector, training new doctors and, how to do it without actually, being a part of the military. So there are going to be a lot of people who are, in NASA and other, what do you call it? The space agencies that are going to be up for hire too.
Oh yeah, or they're going to start their own little startups. And I think we talked about this before, but 1 in every 3 tech startups will be a space startup in the next year or so.
Yep. Facts.
And the only thing that's really that would really keep a group of people like us from actually participating is the cost of a telescope itself. And Lionel likes that big ass Celestron telescope that was in that man's house.
I like that one. You see the lens on that? It was so clear. And I learned when I took astronomy, I learned when I was reading about the telescope, it brought back it cleared some cobwebs. I didn't understand it totally, but when I took astronomy, it was like, okay, I'm learning about this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand what they're saying because I did learn in class. There's a limit to how big you can make a telescope. Then that's why they started to send the things out in space to build them bigger and to get a better view, to get out away from the Earth's lights. But yeah, when I read it, I'm like, yeah, I like this. I like that telescope. Man, I seriously got to get me one, seriously.
Right.
No, what I was just going to say was that I think where you're moving to, you'll probably have a better use for it than where you are right now.
Yeah, I'll be in the suburbs. Yeah. It's not like Chicago with the light pollution. I'll be more clear.
Or even better,
Right.
When you move to Uganda, you'll see it even clearer.
What's that, Mike?
I was just gonna link up this this new Chinese satellite, or I think it's a satellite that they built. Let me see if I can find it.
I would love to actually move there because
To China?
No, not China. Anti-gravity saying Uganda, because the mountains. It's clear. It's just clear. It's close to it's on the equator, so it's further out than other places. Mountainous, so you can able to see a lot more clearly. No,
But you're breaking up.
not to China.
Let me see if I can find
Well,
this.
oh yeah, you wanna the link, you wanna include it into the stream?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the article. It's a really big satellite that they built.
Okay. I would push it past them to build something that big. I like this, man. Space and technology. I can dig it.
I guess we can stop the stream and just
Okay.
go into the flying.
Any other comments for the space and technology? No. All right. Don't forget to this show has been brought to you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna comment that I haven't been to a telescope since I was lived in Ohio at UT in Toledo. So, everybody should take a trip out to there. Check out their telescope when you get a chance.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna do that pretty soon.
In a lot of cities, I know one, at least Chicago, we got observatories here, so we can.
There it is, right there.
Okay, you can click on that. Yeah, at least Chicago, we got observatories. Wow, let me share this. Goodness gracious!
Oh yeah, I saw that.
World's biggest radio telescope open. World's biggest radio telescope starts operating in China and search for alien life. It looks like it's metal.
I believe it is. I think it has mirrors inside of it too.
That thing built at a cost of 1.2 billion won, or 236 million. That's not that much, relative to what we hear other projects going for.
Well, for its purpose. I mean, the whole purpose is go look for aliens. I mean, you don't build something that big unless you have a pretty good hunch that something else is out there.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I mean, when I first saw the article, I saw the picture. I was like, that looks like a big ass wok. They use for cooking up their food. But
Mike,
you know what? Let's
put up some Hunan chicken on there. Feed the next province over.
I was gonna say great wok.
The great walk. We're gonna end this one. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, this show has been brought to you by the Africans of Earth Dimension 2, serving 6 billion Africans on the 5 kingdoms of Africa. So don't forget to tune in Wednesday. We have our geopolitics talk. We got some good points on that one. And Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Friday is Making Money Friday. So thank y'all for tuning in. Talk to y'all later.
Peace.